Kicking off the list at number 10, living fossils. Also referred to as crinoids, but living fossils sounds way better, definitely. These little guys went extinct 273 million years ago, or at least so we thought. We found these dudes this past year, and they're these non-skeletal corals. They're cousins to starfish and sea urchins, but I gotta admit, they don't look nearly as cool. Starfish are the coolest, they're OGs. Discovered on the Pacific Ocean floor, this type of coral will attach itself to the stem of Japanese sea lily, and then they just become one over time. Any type of ocean life that undergoes symbiosis, that creeps me right out. I don't like barnacles, I have a fear of the ocean, and I'm super glad that we're doing this list. So let's move on as I get goosebumps. Ugh, I hate this. Thalassophobia, I think, is like a fear of deep water. I have that. I also have a fear of shallow water. I can't swim. Number 9, Chuck Lagoon. This lagoon was Japan's main base during the war, but come 1944, the United States launched an attack, what some deem is Japan's Pearl Harbor, where 60 ships were sunk and around 250 planes went down. So for 70 years, there's been a massive graveyard sitting in the Pacific, and it wasn't until recently where we got a good look at these haunting artifacts. A photographer by the name of Super Jolly went down and did the dirty work for us. He called this shoot one of the scariest dives he's ever done in his entire life. They described the atmosphere filled with human skulls, gas masks, and bullets as haunting. Yeah, you don't say. Nobody was expecting these artifacts to be that well preserved after all this time. That's the terrifying thing here. Photos are even still intact. You can see people's family members just sitting at the bottom. How sad is that? It's a haunting reminder of naval warfare, and also humans mostly suck. Number 8, MV Derbyshire. This ship was twice the size of the Titanic, but James Cameron didn't make a movie about it, so let me fill you in with less of a budget. MV Derbyshire was the biggest British registered merchant ship of all time to go down. That's an odd brag, but hear me out. She was assembled in 1976 but lost in 1980 en route from Canada to Japan. A Mayday distress call was never issued, and it was following proper ocean routes with weather routing companies, so they were doing all the right things. What happened? September 15th, 1980, a search began for the missing ship and crew, but 6 days later, the search was called off. Nothing was found. The ship was declared lost. The sister ship of the Derbyshire ended up sinking as well later on in 1986 due to deck cracking, so the families urged officials to search again for answers. Come 1994, the Derbyshire was found. Number 7, Garbage Island. There's a lot of treasure in the sea, but there's also lots of garbage because humans suck. Sorry. I mean, look at the top of the Pacific for the example, not even below it, but right on the surface, we have something called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. It's located safely in the North Pacific subtropical gyre. There's basically 4 of these large systems, which are just massive swirling ocean currents moving warm and cool water about. They're whirlpools of garbage now. No wonder aliens don't want to come. They're like, no, this looks like let's just go to that planet. A plastic bag, for example, was found at the bottom of the Marianas Trench. We now have the deepest piece of trash. Kinda hard for Ariel to sing under the sea when she's got a plastic bag wrapped around her head. This great patch is larger than you think. It's more than twice the size of Texas. It's grown up to 60,000 square miles. Please recycle. Number 6, Yonaguni Monument. This structure was discovered in the 80s near Yonaguni Island in Japan, and the claim is that this is an ancient city, or it was long ago. It's 160 feet long and 65 feet wide, and we're pretty torn over this one. Some think it's man-made, with the lines being so straight that it looks like paths were literally carved out. And I mean, to be fair, that looks like a little staircase. If this was on land, I'd be climbing all over it. I'd think it was made on purpose, some ancient jungle gym. But the fact that it's so deep underwater makes us think that it was a natural formation, obviously. No one's going down there like pickaxing, holding their breath. The footage of it is pretty incredible. If I were to come across this, there's no way I would believe that it's all natural. What do you guys think? Number 5, holes. If you have trypophobia, you may want to look away for this next one. I have it, but I have a job to do, so I'll suffer. Off the coast of Big Sur, California, a survey revealed about 15,000 holes, and they're all roughly the same size. They all measure up to about 11 meters wide and 1 meter deep. The team at Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute found 15,000 of these, and then they found 5,000 more that are even bigger. The little guys are micro depressions and the big ones are called pockmarks. Initially, scientists thought methane under the sea floor was coming out to say hello, and then they left a crater. Rovers went down there, tests were done, no methane. In fact, there hasn't even been any activity for 50,000 years. These craters are doing a pretty good job though when it comes to the ecosystem. Now there's deep sea creatures just living in them without paying rent. How rude. They even found a whale skull just laying in one. Imagine being a crab and coming home to that. Number 4. USS Nevada. Deemed the unsinkable ship, and for good reason, the USS Nevada was lost in 1948, and it wasn't until a year ago where she was seen again. Unsinkable ship that sunk. What's going on here? Well, during the 1941 surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, the USS Nevada was the only battleship to get away in one piece. But barely. They barely got away. It took years of repairs, but she finally returned to battle in 1944 to support the Normandy invasion. A year later, it assisted the invasions of Okinawa and Iwo Jima, and then 2 atomic bomb tests were performed, and then post-World War II, she was finally deemed too ancient for service. So the Navy used the USS Nevada as target practice, and it took 5 whole days and lots of power to finally sink it. A torpedo was the final strike. And after it sank, the Navy wasn't really sure where exactly it would end up. It was more than 15,000 feet below the surface, so it could have gone literally anywhere. Hence why we can't find anything else on this list. You get it. Cut to last year, May 2020, a joint expedition by Ocean Infinity and Search Inc., led by Dr. James Delgado, found her. Just 65 nautical miles southwest of Pearl Harbor. Took a little while, but we gotcha. Number 3. Amelia Earhart. Yeah, you heard me, Amelia Earhart. The first woman to fly across the Atlantic, was well on her way to setting even more groundbreaking records, but her plane tragically disappeared somewhere over the Pacific in 1937. It's since been a great mystery where the final resting place of Amelia Earhart is, but we may have actually found her remains back in 1940 on the Pacific island of Niku-Maroro. The initial examination of these remains were reported to be that of a man. That was the general idea in 1941, but come 2018, however, we now have a different idea. Science got better, our ideas got smarter. Researcher Richard Johns took another look at these lost remains, and since those days we've learned more about Amelia Earhart. Photos have surfaced since, so now he's comparing the bone measurements to her body type, and they're actually pretty sure that that's our missing aviator, and that we had her the whole time and we just didn't know. Number 2. The Dragon's Triangle. The Dragon's Triangle is located in the Pacific, obviously, as are most of these, and it's like the evil sister of the Bermuda Triangle, and just like that triangle, this one also takes the blame for disappearing ships and planes, and apparently UFOs are flying about. Of course. It's referred to as the Devil's Sea. These names are so scary sounding. Like, I don't know, change the names and maybe it won't be spooky anymore. Just an idea. There have been UFO sightings, magnetic anomalies, planes and ships vanish. In 1945, for example, a Mitsubishi A6M0 went missing and the pilot's distress call said the sky is opening up. Then they disappeared. 1955, a Japanese ship named the Shinyo Maru lost radio contact, and it didn't take long for the New York Times to coin the term the Devil's Sea. All these spooky triangles are ocean currents to blame, or is there something truly paranormal about the Devil's Triangle? Let us know in the comments down below. See Illuminati confirmed. And finally, number 1, crop circles. We'll finish this list off with a cute one, I guess. Although I'm arguing this is still pretty terrifying. Crop circles on the ocean floor. Aliens confirmed. They were first spotted back in 1995 off the southern coast of Japan, and for 16 years these things were blowing the minds of divers. Nobody knew where they were coming from. They would just be there one week and then gone the next. Tiny aliens or tiny pufferfish. That's right. In 2011, one of these dudes got caught in 4K, and it's one of the weirdest but most cute things I've ever seen. These male pufferfish, they try and lure in the ladies by making art. Yeah, some birds dance like crazy with their weird mouth-looking wing things. Some fish make art. I don't know. Deal with it. Animals are... The thing that baffles me, concerns me if anything, is that the pufferfish uses a shell, like he uses a tool to carve out his emotions.
Starting off this countdown, we have David Fravor. David Fravor is a US Navy commander who spoke about some pretty terrifying things that he encountered underwater while working for the Navy. So according to him, twice while recovering spent practice munitions out of the water, he spotted a weird underwater object. The first time, he saw a dark mass underwater. He described it as being a big mass that was kind of circular. He said he was certain that it wasn't a submarine. For the second sighting, he was retrieving a practice torpedo when this same weird thing sucked it down into the depths of the ocean. The torpedo was never seen again. So what was this big mass that he was seeing? In our 9th spot, we have the naval reports. After hearing David's interview, a 79-year-old woman contacted him. She said that her father was a naval officer, and when she was a child, her father showed her a telegram that stated that unidentified objects had been sighted going in and out of the water at one of their locations. The woman's father told her, and I quote, "We get these all the time, and it's always in the same area." But obviously, the Navy isn't going to release this information to the public. In our 8th spot today, we have the Sycamore Knoll. This is a weird underwater structure located close to Malibu. No one knows what it is, but it looks like a weird stadium-shaped structure, and it's located located about 2,000 feet underwater. It's also massive. It's about 2.5 to 3 miles wide. It also has what appears to be pillars or columns supporting it up, and under there it looks like an entrance. One theory is that it's an underwater alien base. Crazy, I know. But a number of UFO sightings have been reported for years in that area. Some even claim to see UFOs landing in the waters in that exact area, and this was before the underwater structure was even discovered. Freaky, isn't it? What do you think it is though? Let me know in the comments below. In our 7th spot today, we have the unidentified object. Now, in case you were unaware, there's this whole theory that aliens live in underwater bases, and that's why a number of UFO sightings are by lakes, or people have seen these saucers rise up or into the lakes. Well, in 1970, biologist Ivan Sanderson published a book titled The Invisible Residence. In this book, he talked all about UFOs or USOs, unidentified submerged objects, aka UFOs that have been spotted going into the water or rising up out of it. According to this book, on April 19th, 1957, a crew member on board a Japanese fishing boat witnessed something very strange. He saw 2 metallic silvery objects descend from the sky and dive right down into the sea. He described them as being 10 meters long with no wings or anything. When the craft hit the water, it caused great waves and rocked their boat tremendously. So maybe the whole UFO, USO theory is true and they're living underwater. Who knows? In our 6th spot today, we have the gold. Did you know that $771 trillion worth of gold lies hidden in the ocean? Yes, you heard me. Wouldn't it be nice to just be swimming along and bump into some gold and become a millionaire? Unfortunately, it's not that easy. Ocean waters around the world contain about 20 million tons of gold in them. Each liter of water would contain approximately 13 billionths of a gram of gold. So you need to collect and filter an awful lot before becoming rich. And currently, there's no cost-effective method to remove the gold from seawater and be profitable. Now, people have tried. None have been successful. One case that I want to talk about has to do with a man named Ford Jerrigan. He came up with a plan for a gold accumulator. The plan was to extract gold from the Long Island Sound using a process involving mercury and electricity treatments. In fact, people thought that it was great, and before he knew it, he had investors, and he raised about $1 million for this project. But in the end, he scammed them all and fled with the money. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the giant sea monster. Now, if you watched my video on Google Earth, then you already have seen me talk about this. If you haven't, then, well, Google Earth basically caught a giant sea beast on their satellite camera. It was spotted off the coast of Antarctica's Deception Island. And no one, even scientists, don't know what it is. It could just be a whale, but it's still unconfirmed. Theories range from it being an underwater UFO, to a kraken, or another sea beast that we have yet to discover. To be honest, to me, it looks like a massive squid, but what do you think it is? Let me know in the comments below. In our 4th spot, we have the UFO video. More UFOs. Now, this was a leaked video showing what appears to be a UFO diving into the ocean. The video was filmed in 2019 off the coast of San Diego. Eventually, people were demanding answers, so the Pentagon eventually came forward saying that the video was authentic and that they don't know what the object is in the video. In the video, the object flies across the screen before stopping and slowly lowering itself into the water. Apparently, this was recorded by official Navy personnel. What do you think that could be? The Pentagon has no explanation for it yet. In our 3rd spot today, we have the plastic. The amount of plastic currently in our oceans is disgusting. Currently, 5.25 trillion macro and micro pieces of plastic are in our ocean. There's 46,000 pieces in every square mile of the ocean. Every day, around 8 million pieces of plastic make their way into our oceans. And guess what? Fish are eating them, and then we're eating these fish. So slowly, these microplastics are ending up in our bodies. But not just from fish. From bottled water, beer, honey, sea salt, and tea bags have all been exposed as microplastic carriers. We're killing marine life and ourselves, slowly but surely, and the governments are hardly addressing this issue. In our 2nd spot, we have the nuclear waste. Bet you didn't know this, but our oceans are radioactive. Since 1952, low levels of radioactive waste have been discharged into the Irish Sea, the English Channel, and the Arctic Ocean. This radiation can enter the food chain through plankton, and then the fish eat the plankton and then we eat the fish. In fact, radioactive cesium and plutonium have already been found in seals and porpoises. And it's getting worse. As the nuclear energy industry grows, more and more radioactive waste will be disposed of and find its way into our ground and water supply. Again, another scary thing the government doesn't address. And in our number one spot today, we have the secret underwater bases. Allegedly, the government has a number of secret underwater bases. They're just hidden from the public, so we don't know about them. We do know of one base though, and that's the Naval Testing Facility in Lake Bayview, Idaho. The lake that it's located in is 1,200 feet deep, and it is pretty remote, so it's deep and secluded enough to run these tests. If they have one there, who's to say they don't have more and in the ocean? Only time will tell.
Number 10. Garfield. In the 80s in France, people were baffled when Garfield started constantly washing up on shore, specifically a phone that is in the shape of the orange cat. The phenomenon went on for 35 more years, Garfields continuously drifting ashore like a chubby lasagna-loving message in a bottle. The pictures of the water-damaged cats polluting rocks and beaches look like something straight out of a movie or a weird Photoshop. The reasoning behind the cats taking over France wasn't revealed until 2019, when it was discovered that a shipping container had fallen off a boat and became trapped in an underwater cave. Comments on the situation said things like, "I'm going to assume that the shipwreck happened on a Monday," and another person pointed out the fact that this means the Garfields weren't even packaged or organized, just thrown loose into the container in a mountain of orange. Number 9. Train Graveyard. In 1985, a man named Paul Hepler was mapping the bottom of the ocean near New Jersey when his device picked up a reading of two massive metal objects. 90 feet underwater, he discovered two different trains that had been missing since the 1850s. He said, "I didn't know what it was at first because the water was dirty and the visibility was so bad back then. Once I got a better look at it in later dives, I could see they were locomotives." The trains are incredibly rare models, as only a few were made before they quickly became obsolete. The interesting thing is, nobody knows how the trains actually came to rest under the 90 feet of water. Some theories suggesting that they were being transported across the ocean when they were hit by a bad storm, falling overboard and quickly sinking to the ocean floor. The trains have no record of going missing and don't even have any record of ever being built. Number 8. Robot Hand. Let's not go very far and take a look at something that washed up on a beach in Staten Island. An organization called Underwater New York is responsible for photographing and documenting unusual objects that either wash up on beaches in New York or are found lurking on the ocean floor. A couple was walking down Great Kills Park Beach when they discovered a metal object in the sand. It turned out to be a large robotic hand with articulated fingers, though some of the fingers were missing. There seems to be no explanation for where the hand came from, so it could be similar to the other stories where some sort of animatronic was being shipped across the water before meeting an unfortunate demise. Or it could be remnants of a robot versus alien war that took place thousands of years ago before humans inhabited the earth, but that's just my theory. Underwater New York has lots of cool and creepy photos, so check out their site if you're interested in more. Number 7. Yonaguni Complex. Yonaguni, Japan made their own discovery in 1985, but unfortunately this time it was not Garfield. Instead, divers found what appeared to be a massive underwater pyramid. There were also 5 other structures in various states of falling apart: temples, a stadium, a castle, a massive arch, and more. They're all connected by roads and what appears to have once been a massive wall surrounding everything. There are also carved inscriptions which appear to have been written in an old language that was once used in the area. A Japanese marine biologist suggests that this is a sort of Japanese Atlantis, a civilization that they believe sank around 5,000 years ago. They figured this out by dating stalactites that were found in underwater caves that they think sank alongside the city. Some people believe that these are just natural formations, but the city layout seems too perfect to just be naturally occurring. Number 6. Undersea River. Now let's look at something that is naturally occurring but still pretty damn cool and bizarre. If you've ever watched SpongeBob, you know that they appear to have a beach underwater, and you probably thought that that was pretty ridiculous. But turns out it's actually pretty real. Researchers discovered a massive flowing river at the bottom of the Black Sea, complete with rapid waters and even waterfalls. It reached reaches depths of 115 feet and even has a volume of water more than the River Thames. It functions basically the same as a river on land, carving out water channels and even flooding plains. So how does this happen? Well, it's due to the content of the water. The undersea river has a higher salt content, making it denser, causing it to stay near the ocean floor and flow with its own current. It has provided us a lot of insight into how sea creatures in certain areas survive, and it's just pretty damn cool to look at. Number 5. Flying saucer. We're at the halfway point, and that means it's alien time. Treasure hunters were using sonar to sweep the Baltic Sea when they picked up what appeared to be a shipwreck. But it wasn't just any normal shipwreck, it looked to be an alien shipwreck. It is known as the Baltic Sea anomaly, and they couldn't really figure out what it might actually be. From above, it looks like the exact shape of the Millennium Falcon, but I don't think they found Han Solo anywhere nearby. It's also absolutely massive, being around 197 feet in diameter. The group that made the discovery said, "Let us put it like this. We have tried a lot of theories. The list is getting shorter and shorter with options, so for now we don't really know. We do not have anything that speaks more for one option or the other." Other theories include things like a Russian spaceship or a World War II submarine device, but I'll stick with aliens for now. Number 4. Mysterious structure. Archaeologists discovered a massive cone-shaped structure in the Sea of Galilee. The form is made up of boulders. It is absolutely massive, 70 meters in diameter and 200 meters down below sea level, estimated to weigh around 60,000 tons. They have found structures like this before, which were used thousands of years ago to attract and breed fish, but this one is absolutely massive compared to all the others that they've found. They think it may have also been created to attract fish when there was an economy based around fish and marine life. They also think that it may have originally been created on land but eventually sunk underwater as sea levels rose over time. It's also been suggested that this was a structure used to mark a grave or large burial ground. The researchers reporting that they believe the structure could be around 4,000 years old. Number 3. Underwater prison. Who doesn't love an abandoned prison? But maybe that's not enough to get you excited anymore. So how about an underwater abandoned prison? A prison was established in Estonia outside of a small town, being put together by the Soviet Union. It was located on the edge of a limestone quarry, and they used the prisoners to work in the quarry and collect the goods. It lasted like this for a while until Estonia gained their independence in 1991. The Soviets moved out, leaving behind everything that they had established, including the prison. Because of this and the fact that no one was maintaining the groundwater, it started to flood into the quarry, effectively creating a new lake in its place. As the water level rose, it completely swallowed the quarry and a majority of the prison buildings. Only a small part of the prison is still visible above the water, and it's now become a very popular spot for divers. Number 2. Rubber ducks. 30 years ago, almost 30,000 rubber ducks took a trip around the world, and they didn't even have to pay for a cruise ticket. Similarly to the Garfield phones, the bath toys were being transported from China to the United States in a shipping container. But unfortunately, the container fell into the water and opened up, releasing 28,800 rubber ducks into the sea. They followed the currents and ended up in many different destinations across the world, being reported in places like Hawaii, the United Kingdom, and South Africa. Many different people went in search of the ducks in hopes to both find and track their journeys, and one such person even wrote a book about it titled Moby Duck. While a paddling of bright yellow ducks in the middle of the ocean is pretty fun to look at, it gets stomped on by the massive conversation about pollution and plastics in our waters. Number 1. Underwater spiders. Now let's end it off with something creepy and disgusting and just horrible to think about. At least for me anyways. 250 years ago, explorers first encountered the scuba spider, a spider that actually lives underwater. They do this by trapping air bubbles in their web, using it like a fish gill. When scientists captured 12 of these spiders to study them, they discovered that the creature can breathe underwater for over 24 hours, able to hide itself away from both predators and prey. An entomologist said, "It shows how amazing and versatile spiders can be, and I honestly wish spiders would just be a little less amazing and versatile." So next time you're in the ocean and get frightened by a piece of seaweed brushing your leg, don't panic. It's probably not seaweed, just a spider.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have actual trash. This one is on the less mysterious side of today's list and more on the upsetting side, to be completely honest. Humans like to leave their trash everywhere, unfortunately, and that has now seemed to reach even places humans can't really go. I'm talking about the garbage that was found at the deepest point on Earth. Director James Cameron took a venture down to the Challenger Deep, which is located in the Mariana Trench, and here he found none other than a plastic bag and candy wrappers littering the bottom. Nice to be able to make history on such a dive and also have that fun little discovery. This dive took him almost 7 miles below the ocean, which is 5 times longer than the Grand Canyon, just to put things into perspective. In our number 9 spot today, we have a robot hand. On the eerily named Great Kills Park Beach in Staten Island, one autumn day a person was having a nice stroll when they stumbled upon something that had obviously washed up ashore from the ocean. This something turned out to be a lonely robot hand. There was no robot body or any other piece found for that matter, which leaves me with one question. Has anyone seen a handless robot running around? I honestly just don't know what someone was doing with a robot near the ocean, because it seems obvious that those two things don't mix. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Apollo 11 mission engines. Okay, this one isn't exactly trash, but we also aren't about to use it either. We'll call it an artifact. In 2013, off of the coast of Florida, just a casual 14,000 feet under the water, the engines from the Saturn V rocket, which was the rocket used in the Apollo 11 mission that sent Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, and Buzz Aldrin into space on the mission to the moon, were found after 43 years. The mission to recover these missing engines was funded by Jeff Bezos, who apparently said that the Apollo 11 mission was what fueled his passion for science and engineering. On the mission, once at an altitude of about 38 miles, the first stage of the spacecraft, including these engines, separated from the craft. The parts are then just considered lost or destroyed for forever, which is why they can be on a list of trash found in the ocean. That was until Mr. Bezos spent his money to find them. In our number 7 spot today, we have a train graveyard. Okay, again, not so much trash, more of an artifact, but this list would not be interesting if I only talked about plastic bags and candy wrappers. Off the coast of New Jersey, about 90 feet under the water, archaeologists found 2 extremely rare and well-preserved steam trains that are from somewhere around the 1850s. While this is an incredible and super cool find, the question remains on how they ended up at the bottom of the ocean. There's no record of the trains either being built or lost for that matter. The best theory as to what may have happened here is that perhaps the trains were being transported by sea when a storm hit, and then maybe the crew was forced to push them overboard to prevent capsizing. I don't know a lot about boats or trains, but that sounds like a pretty reasonable explanation. In our number 6 spot today, we have a giant Lego man. If you stumbled upon an 8-foot tall Lego figurine that had been washed ashore by the ocean tides, you'd probably have a couple of questions. Right? Well, what if people in the Netherlands, the UK, Florida, and Japan all had that experience? Even weirder, right? Well, a few years ago that's exactly what happened, but luckily this isn't some ominous message from some sort of scary being, but instead it was the works of an artist called Ego Leonard. The Lego figures are apparently what is referred to as, quote, his thing. Each Lego person has a shirt with the words, quote, no real than you are written on them. In our number 5 spot today, we have a lot of rubber ducks. When I say a lot, I mean a lot. Like literally thousands being washed up onto the shores in Hawaii, Alaska, South America, Australia, Scotland, and sometimes not even washing ashore at all, just simply being found floating out at sea. Colloquially known as the friendly floaties, it is said that all these rubber ducks all originate back to the same shipping container, and guess what? This shipping container apparently fell overboard on its way from Hong Kong to the United States all the way back in 1998. That's way too long. This crate apparently was carrying 28,000 ducks at the time, so it's no wonder we haven't found them all yet. While this is a horrible case of plastic pollution, scientists have used this disaster to enhance their knowledge and understanding of ocean currents and plastic pollution. So I guess that's one good thing that came out of something terrible. Sometimes you have to make lemonade out of rubber ducks, or however that saying goes. In our number 4 spot today, we have medicinal pills. Somewhere around 2,000 years ago, there was a cargo ship that capsized just off of the coast of what is now Italy. Fast forward a bunch of years to just a few decades ago, and the wreckage of that ship was found and quickly brought up because how exciting. In the searching of the vessel, many fun and exciting things were found, like wine bottles, glass jars, and even medical equipment, but perhaps the most exciting of all of the discoveries was found in a tin vessel. These vessels were found during an x-ray of the ship, and inside the vessels they found tightly sealed medicinal tablets. It is said that after further research, it was determined that these tablets were used as medicinal eye wash. I don't know, that sounds terrible. I also don't know how they figure these things out, but hey, I guess that's why it's not my job. But my job's fun because I still like to know about it. In our number 3 spot today, we have an ancient fishing weir. Okay, I had to look up what a fishing weir is because I did not know, so if you're like me and don't know, a fishing weir is defined by Wikipedia as, quote, an obstruction placed in tidal waters or wholly or partially across a river to direct the passage of or trap fish. Okay, cool. It's a fish trap. So we found an ancient one of those. Nice. This thing was found in 2014 just off of the coast of a Canadian island. It is said that the underwater area where this fishing weir was found dates back to at least 13,000 years ago, which makes it the oldest known weir to man. Researchers believe that it was used by an ancient civilization living on the land to catch salmon, but over time the sea level rose, which submerged the weir too far below the surface, as well as shrunk the land quite a bit. It is so cool that one discovery leads to all of this incredible information about times past on Earth. In our number 2 spot today, we have Trash Island. How can we make a whole video talking about trash found in the ocean without talking about the Trash Island itself? Trash Island is one of man's worst creations, as it quite literally is a massive human pollution just chilling in the ocean. Also known as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, which makes it sound far too glamorous for the reality of the situation, or the Pacific Trash Vortex. It basically is exactly what it sounds like, as it is a gyre of marine debris. The collection of plastic and other floating trash originates from the Pacific Rim, which includes countries in both North and South America, as well as Asia. The gyre is actually split into 2 areas, the Eastern Garbage Patch, which is between Hawaii and California, and the Western Garbage Patch, which extends from Japan to the Hawaiian Islands. I think the idea that we have to name them, and that there's more than one, might show that we are not necessarily in a great spot with the whole pollution thing. In our number 1 spot today, we have a head. Don't worry, not a real human head, but honestly, still super creepy. This mannequin head washed up on the shore from the ocean for some unsuspecting person to have the fright of their life. This mannequin head is covered in gooseneck barnacles from its time spent at sea, which really adds to the eerie nature of it. This one is quite creepy and definitely would have been terrifying to find, but I think the more I look at it, the more I think it might actually be kind of beautiful in a weird way. I don't know. What do you guys think? Downright terrifying or kind of hauntingly beautiful? Let me know down below in the comments.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Garfield phones. The Garfield craze began back in 1978. Jim Davis brought to life this lasagna-loving cat, the OG grumpy cat, really, we all know that. And as his popularity grew, so did his merch. A Garfield couch with eyes that's really anybody wants. But the last thing you would expect to see floating in the ocean are Garfield phones. Also, yes, I said phones, as in more than one. There's a lot. Thousands of Garfield phones have slowly been washing up ashore in France for 30 years. Imagine just standing, looking at the ocean, thinking about your ex, pondering life, and then a Garfield phone washes up. You're like, fine, I'll call her. Just not on Monday. I hate Mondays. This began in the 80s, but until recently, we didn't know where they came from. Mysterious Garfield phones for 30 years. Some guy's like writing, he's like, where are these things coming from? We need to know. A farmer read about these phones in an article and how they could, be hurting the environment and all that jazz. And then he came forward and admitted that he knew about the shipping container full of Garfields. Yeah, Rain Morvan. He says in the 80s he found the shipping container in a sea cave. Imagine thinking you found some of the lost billions worth of treasure in the ocean, but then you just open it and it's this shit. Just pieces of Garfield phones that were left over. And also, by that point, it was too late. Nothing was left in the container, just pieces of it. They were all floating in the ocean. Also, if the ocean gives you a plastic Garfield phone, answer it. Answer the call. Hit the thumbs up, answer those calls. Number 9, closed beach. Okay, you're heading to the beach, you got your flip-flops, a little bit of sunblock on your nose that you haven't rubbed in for some reason. You look ready for the part, but then when you arrive to the beach, it's taped off. Nobody is allowed to get those tan lines. What could possibly be going on? Is there an explosive on the beach or something? What is this? Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Last year, a 100-pound aerial explosive from World War II was found washed up along a North Carolina beach. German U-boats would target the area during World War II, nicknaming it Torpedo Junction, so it's not really too odd that something floated in here. But today it's more commonly known as Hatteras Beach. Even the iconic lighthouse from the late 1800s, that was closed off to tourists while this was happening. There was a half-mile safety parameter just in case. But after a close inspection of the explosive, it appeared that it was still live. So while the explosive was in the water, they detonated it before, anybody else accidentally did during a game of Marco Polo. Number 8, floating islands. Imagine you're on the open water in Peru and then you see some boats pass yours. It's nice, the water's calm, the sun is beating down, and then all of a sudden, instead of passing an island full of people, the island full of people passes you. You heard me, the floating islands of Lake Titicaca are man-made islands. There's about 70 of them, and they all reside in the Bay of Puno. You'll find these, and they're all made of braided roots from Totora. The tribe of the Uru, Choluni, live here, and their ancestral culture is linked to the lake. So every 20 days or so, a new layer of Totora is added to the surface to avoid the island from, sinking. And these islands, by the way, they're also massive. They fit around 5 to 7 families. They fish and make crafts aboard these islands, which they of course sell after to tourists. Number 7, glass. I've played every Zelda game numerous times, okay? I take my time with those. I break every jar, I check every corner, and collect as much as I can as I go. So if I saw one of these floating in the ocean, I would for sure think I found a quest item. These glass orbs were originally made by a Norwegian glass company back in 1842. Large fish nets would be attached to these today, but now they're made of aluminum and plastic. Back then, glass was the real deal. They didn't get waterlogged like cork did, and also sea worms couldn't get to them. And most importantly, they're beautiful to look at. So every year in Lincoln City on the west coast, there's a big hunt where about 3,000 glass orbs are hidden on a public beach. Now, if you're lucky, you might find an original float-in, but the odds of that happening are, you never know. The Garfield phone thing, it might happen. I've been watching glass blowing shows on Netflix. This sounds like the coolest job ever. Yeah, my dad makes glass. He makes glass orbs. Is he a magician? Maybe. I'll never tell. Number 6, tombstones. Back in 2012, the world did not end, obviously, but if you believed it was going to, and then you saw a tombstone wash up on a popular beach, you probably never sleep. That's a sign. It's a clear sign. That's exactly what beachgoers experienced back in May 2012. Two friends were on a nice beach walk. They were talking about their life and goals and aspirations, all that good stuff. And they were on the coast of San Francisco's Ocean Beach when something that looked like a fridge started to crash through the water and wash up. It was not a fridge, however, it was even worse. A tombstone from the year 1876. Huh? That's haunting. It originally belonged to a woman named Emma Bosworth, and then just 1 month later, another stone rolled up. That's terrifying. The condition they were in also alarmingly good. You'd expect, as I'm describing, that it's like old and broken, and there's pieces that wash up, and you have to like put them together and be like, who is this? No, they were like, we read them and we're like, that's Emma. Cool, we got it. The next tombstone belonged to Delia Presby Oliver from 1890. Now the stones came from the Laurel Hill Cemetery after it shut its gates back in the 1940s. So the headstones were used as a makeshift seawall, and then they went through the ocean, had a good time, scared a bunch of fish, and then eventually rolled up to these beachgoers. Number 5, giant snowballs. Glass balls floating around and now snowballs? This is a magical one, folks. I love it. In western Siberia, these giant balls of snow and ice were floating around the Gulf of Ob. Now the entire beach ended up being covered in snowballs as well. It just rolled in and just covered everything. These eventually washed in and then set ashore, setting the grounds for the biggest snowball fight in history, you would think. If you walked by and saw this, you're like, are they filming a movie here? What is this? You just need to be really strong to throw these snowballs. Some were the size of tennis balls, while others had a 3-foot radius. So it's basically just snowman body parts floating around in the water, right? Technically, that's where my brain goes. I'm sick. This rare phenomenon happens where small pieces of ice get rolled by wind and water over and over again, so nature makes these balls for us. Thank you. This also happened in 2010 on Lake Michigan, so it's pretty rare, but keep your eyes open. It could happen. As much as I want to say I hope you see this, don't. Stay away from frozen bodies of water. Stay on a field and then make the snowballs yourself, Keep it real. That's the fun, right? Number 4, Nikes. I threw shoes on my holiday wish list because there's nothing like getting a fresh pair of sneakers. You open it, it's a size and a half too small, but you're like, you know what? I love it. Thank you so much. I'm not even gonna return them. I'm gonna curl my toes for 3 years. Sometimes you find the perfect ones and you don't let them go, and sometimes the shoes find you. In the mid-90s, a shipment of Nike shoes heading to the US was lost during a crazy storm. Around 5 shipping containers, of course, fell over, so cut to later on, now we have 61,000 pairs just starting to drift towards the west coast. Just shoes on the water, all making their way in. It sounds funny in my head. It's pretty funny. People saw shoes in the water floating in. Do you know how afraid I would be if a shoe brushed against my shoulder while I was taking a dip? My brain would go to the worst place possible. Now these shoes luckily didn't belong to anybody, but they all did have the same serial number by chance. So what started as an ocean mystery ended up working out for the better. Nike lost a lot of money, which is cool, and then we tracked the shoe's journey, learning more about our ocean currents. Win-win. Number 3, eggs. Easter egg hunts are pretty intense. When I hide eggs from my siblings, they never found them growing up. There were also times where I even forgot where I put them. That's how good I was. You hear me? Never put them in your floor vent. That's no good. It gets hot and then Yeah, it's gross. Tens of thousands of plastic eggs surrounded a German beach back in 2017 along the North Sea near Germany-Netherlands border. Now these plastic eggs were released to the open waters after a storm threw a shipping container overboard. So the way they cleaned all these up, by the way, was just genius. They literally just told a bunch of kids, hey, there's Easter eggs here, go clean them up. And then they gladly did the largest plastic ocean cleanup in like one day. It was amazing. Number 2, pipes. Where's Mario when you need him? Guy's always running around. Back in 2017, these massive pipes washed upon the shores of the northern Norfolk coast. If I was swimming and I saw this thing floating towards me, I would faint. I would think it's a giant sea snake and I'd be like, I would have no idea what I was looking at. And people really didn't at first. When they were swimming, people saw this in the water and they're like, let's get out. That's clearly a monster. I didn't realize how big these pipes were at first, but now I think I have submechanophobia, the fear of large things and bodies of water. You're welcome. Now you have it as well. These pipes were lost at sea following an accident on an Iceland container ship. The classic container ship oopsie, you know, dropping Garfield phones, Lego, and accidentally cutting loose 500-meter long pipes, that sort of stuff. Yeah, they were massive. As soon as the first one drifted ashore on the coast, I mean, obviously you could see them coming. The company that produced them, Pipe Life, they urged the curious to stay far away. You can see them coming because they're the size of buildings, and they can obviously crush you. These things have a diameter of 2 meters, and the longest one that washed up was 500 meters long. And finally, number 1. Challenger parts. When the Challenger broke apart 73 seconds after liftoff on January 28, 1986, the ship's fuselage broke apart and sadly the lives of all 7 crew members were taken. Now the ship exploded and sent pieces into the ocean, and a decade later, parts of America's lost history began floating back near the waters around the Kennedy Space Center. The Challenger initially landed about 22 miles away, and all that time later, this piece that weighs hundreds of pounds came back home. This creeps some people out, but it kind of gives me a little comfort, if anything. The fact that 11 years later this started to swim back, I mean, sure, that's how currents work and all, but that close to that same space center, it's the heart. I don't know. Something's going on here. While this one isn't exactly mysterious, it's a nicer one to end this list off. Debris from the Challenger is currently on display at the Forever Remembered Memorial at the Kennedy Space Center. Go check it out.
Alright, let's get into today's list. Starting off at our number 10 spot, we have the deepest known shipwreck. Who knows how many shipwrecks lay in our oceans, considering many of them have yet to be found? The USS Johnston was a US Navy destroyer which sank during the Battle of Samar in 1944 after a battle with a large fleet of Japanese warships. Victor Vescovo, who is one of the few people who have made the dive into the Mariana Trench, was one of the people who first stumbled upon the remains of this sunken warship. The ship's remains were first found in 2019, and it is now known as the deepest known shipwreck as it was found 6,456 meters deep in the Philippine Sea in the Pacific Ocean. Victor, who led the expedition, said, quote, "The wreck is so deep that there's very little oxygen down there, and while there is a little bit of contamination from marine life, it's remarkably well intact except for the damage it took from the furious fight." End quote. This ship is so deep it took a few dives in order for them to be able to relocate the ship, which they have now been able to do entirely. There were 327 crew members on board this ship during the battle, and sadly only 141 of them survived. The diving team was sure to be respectful about their mission and laid wreaths both before and after their dives, which is just a nice note to end off this point on. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Baltic Sea anomaly. In 2011, while searching for treasure in the Baltic Sea, these divers came across something super weird. It was a 70-meter long object laying 300 feet below the sea, and to this day, no one knows for sure what it is. It's a massive disc-shaped metal object, and while it certainly is weird to find a huge underwater structure that no one can identify, the weirdest part about this story is that those who found it claim that their equipment stopped working only when they were around this massive unknown structure. There was some sort of electrical interference, but only when they got close or directly above it. Some people believe it's either a glacial deposit, which is the result of thawing glaciers, or an alien spacecraft. I'll let you guys decide on this one. UFO or glacial deposit? I'm gonna go with UFO because that is way more exciting. In our number 8 spot today, we have a USO. Daryl Miklos is an explorer who took a deep dive following maps that had been put together by his friend and former astronaut Gordon Cooper. The map Daryl was using was initially made to help identify more than 100 magnetic anomalies in the sea. During one dive at a location within the Bermuda Triangle, he thought he was going to find an ancient shipwreck, but instead found something that continues to stump researchers and Daryl himself. He came across a very strange structure that wasn't like anything he had ever seen before. This structure had long obtrusions which stuck out from its sides, and the whole thing was covered in corals, so whatever this thing is, it has been down there for hundreds, if not thousands of years. years. Daryl has said, quote, "There's identical formations in 3 different areas and they don't look nature-made. They don't look man-made. Certainly nothing I've ever seen based on my experience, and I have years of experience at doing this. We've identified multiple different types of shipwreck material. This doesn't match or look anything like that." End quote. People have started speculating that this structure may just be the remains of a crashed UFO. If it isn't, then what else could it be? I'm feeling open to suggestions, so let me know. In our number 7 spot today, we have a giant squid attack. While diving into the deep sea in a submarine, there's quite a few things that could go wrong. Some are certainly scarier than others, but I'm gonna go ahead and say that being attacked by a giant squid is somewhere on the list of bad ones. Maybe not life-threatening since you're in a submarine, but still absolutely terrifying. That is what happened to a pair of Greenpeace submariners while on an expedition in 2004 in the Bering Sea between Russia and Alaska. The squid sprays ink and is clearly quite stressed out, which I'll admit is actually kind of sad to see. It isn't quite clear exactly why the squid was in this area, as it is quite far north for its usual habitat, but it was there nonetheless. Researchers aren't exactly sure what kind of squid it was for sure, but all they know is that it was very, very large. I think it's safe to say that those people were glad that they were in a submarine that day. In our number 6 spot today, we have the massive siphonophore. Okay, I'm not saying that this is going to be scary to everyone, but I'm not gonna lie. Knowing that things like this exist in the deep sea is absolutely terrifying to me. So there are these things called siphonophores that exist in the ocean, and they appear to be a singular multicellular organism, but they're actually an entire colony of polyps and medusoids that are collectively known as a zooid. So, a few years ago, scientists found the longest siphonophore they've ever found, and it was a whopping 154 feet long. Yep, just a huge long piece of a bunch of different little creatures all working together. I don't know why it freaks me out so much. Maybe it's because it's a bunch of creatures that all seem as though they share a brain. Maybe it's something I just can't comprehend. Or maybe it's because this thing is 154 feet long. Regardless of whatever it is, the deep sea is just as fascinating as it is terrifying. In our number 5 spot today, we have dying coral reefs. In 2009, after a 4-week expedition to explore the deep ocean just southwest of Tasmania, while there were many exciting discoveries, there was also one that was much more grim. The scientists found deep water coral reefs, but in the same moment as the excitement came the realization that these coral reefs are dying. There needed to be much more research into exactly what was causing the reef systems to die, but the worry was that whatever the cause was would extend into the shallower reefs as well, which would cause massive problems for both marine life as well as human life. Scientists needed to figure out whether the coral was dying because of ocean warming, disease, or increasing ocean acidity. Whatever the cause, if it were to extend into the shallower coral reefs and cause those to die off as well, 25% of marine life would lose their habitat, the coastal fishing industry would collapse, coastal tourism economies would shrink, coastlines would erode, we wouldn't have the same access to submarine animals which have helped us with medical breakthroughs, and honestly the list just continues on. So while this one might not currently seem like a scary addition to this list, it could have many more implications than we are even aware of. In our number 4 spot today, we have this deep sea feast. As it turns out, deep sea feasts are quite a horrific sight, as this video footage from a deep dive expedition will show you. This is the scene that scientists were welcomed to on a deep diving expedition that took place in 2019. What you are seeing is dozens of octopuses mercilessly devouring the 4 to 5 meter long remains of what is believed to have been a baleen whale. Their meal includes some of the internal organs, while large scavengers are stripping away the flesh, and those good old zombie worms are diving into their favorite meal, the lipids and fat from the bones. While this is a grisly sight, I guess it's nice to know that nothing goes to waste in the deep sea. In an environment where food is scarce, this must have been a pretty big win for all of these creatures. Still, seeing video footage of it is pretty wild. In our number 3 spot today, we have the long-armed squid. The long-armed squid is not often seen, and thank goodness for that, because they are so unbelievably freaky. They can be found in many different oceans, but they live in the permanently dark zone of the ocean around 1,219 meters or 4,000 feet deep in the sea. On November 11th, 2007, as an ROV was searching around the deep waters in the Gulf of Mexico, it was able to catch one of these guys on film. While there is still a ton that remains a mystery about these elusive creatures, it is believed that they can grow to be around 23 feet long or over over 7 meters. The real creepy stance that these guys have is when they hold out their extremely long appendages perpendicular to their body, which creates a sort of elbow look. I don't know, just freaks me out. Imagine waking up and having a giant squid with elbows floating around your room. I know that won't happen, but I'm just saying, imagine. In our number 2 spot today, we have a squid graveyard. During a 2012 expedition into the Gulf of California on the seafloor, scientists came across a ton of squid carcasses and squid egg sheets, which was a bit of a scary sight, but they made a note of it, captured their footage, and just continued on. In 2015, when they returned to the same area, they found even more, and now they really had to ask themselves, why was this happening? Well, they then took a look at the squid's life, and things started to make a little bit more sense, although it is still unclear. So, many species of squid will see the adults all join in large groups to spawn and lay clusters of eggs on the seafloor. Shortly after this, many of the adults pass away. This isn't the case for all squid, however. There are some mothers who instead lay their eggs in an egg sheet, which they keep between their arms for months. When the babies finally hatch, the mother will then drift her way down to the sea floor. So this answers the questions why the squid died, but it doesn't answer the question of why there were so many bodies in one specific zone, and the answer to that still remains a mystery. This is, however, an important part of the underwater ecosystem, as these squid carcasses then become food for the other animals that live in the area, such as crabs, sea stars, ratfish, and other crustaceans and bottom-dwelling scavengers. In our number 1 spot today, we have the Guardians of the Underworld. I'm here asking you why there are so many insanely large creatures in the deep sea. I know, deep sea gigantism, but still, why? So here we are talking about another insanely large creature. This time it's a jellyfish, which has been nicknamed the Guardian of the Underworld. This creature can reach 10 meters or 33 feet in length, and despite its enormous size, it isn't usually caught on camera. Thanks to the MBARI's ROV, however, more video footage was able to be captured of this amazing and terrifying jelly. In the 27 years that the MBARI's ROV has been patrolling the deep sea, they've only observed this animal 7 times, so it really does feel kind of special that we get a chance to take a peek at this thing in its natural habitat. While those long billowy things coming off of it appear as though they would be stinging tentacles, they're actually more like arms that help with feeding. It is thought that they use these massive arms to envelop their unsuspecting prey, and that was all I needed to hear to swear off the ocean forever. The red coloring of these jellies helps them blend into the dark backdrop of the sea, making them a perfect predator. A member of the MBARI team said, quote, "It's one of the largest invertebrate predators known in the ocean, yet little is understood about its ecology and behavior," end quote. So, like many of the other deep sea creatures on today's list, there is still so much more to learn about these guys.
Kicking off the list at number 10, let's dive in. Barracuda. Exploring the deep is dangerous if you're a diver, of course, not because of the deadly ocean life surrounding your every direction, but because if you come up too quickly, major health problems will follow. But if not that, probably a deadly barracuda, equally as scary. This deep discovery was made by user Arira95. I'm pulling real events for this one from real deep sea divers. We're going to the real content for this one, so buckle up. One time when my parents visited Mexico, they went diving and my mom was slightly lower than my dad looking at the ocean floor. My mom had on a gold necklace that was floating in the water around her, and it was a sunny day and a fairly shallow dive at this point, so it was sparkling. My mom looked below at all the critters when my dad grabbed her and started frantically shaking her arm to get her attention. I'm sweating reading this. She looked up and a barracuda was directly in front of her, staring intently at that shiny necklace. She slowly moved up her hand to cover the necklace, and they slowly and calmly moved away from it, and it took off without bothering them anymore. But still pretty unsettling, and taught my mom to be a little more aware of her surroundings when she's diving. I mean, fair, but I mean, no one expects a barracuda. Also, if your mom wants to dive with chains on, that's pretty sick. You won't catch her slacking. Even in the depths of the sea, she's like, I'm ready. I don't care who shows up. I don't care who I bump into. Water shoes and bling. Check and check. Let's go diving. Number 9, venomous sea snakes. Last year in the deep waters off Australia's coast, of course it's Australia, always Australia, a sea snake that was once thought to be extinct has been rediscovered. How fun. He's like, psych, you thought. Just when you thought the ocean couldn't get even more dangerous, now we got new sea snakes to worry about. The short-nosed sea snake hasn't been seen in 23 years, and they would often live near Ashmore Reef, but last year, divers found one 67 meters below the surface in the twilight zone, which is pretty wild. just lurking in the dark, just hanging out, meditating. The Australian Institute of Marine Science is responsible for this discovery, and the team calls this a second chance to protect and further understand the species. And an up-close personal encounter is brought to life from this diver. Apparently, this happens from time to time before major storms. Snakes can sense an oncoming storm, so what they try and do is latch onto something heading in the direction towards shore, so they don't have to burn energy and they can just grab onto like a barrel or something and then just, make its way there. Pretty smart. So this diver was exploring, nothing was going crazy or anything like that, and then he felt a snake wrap onto his leg because he felt a storm was coming in. The diver didn't even know that a storm was coming. The snake did, and he wrapped its snake self around his leg. As soon as I was in the shallows, it uncurled and headed up the beach where it hid under a breadfruit tree. That was from a diver named Specialist Celery. Great name, also terrifying experience. I don't like snakes in water or on land. Next, number 8, surprise tiger shark. Yeah, not something you want to see diving in the deep. A tiger shark. A glowing shark, left shark, I don't care. I want none of the shark smoke. This deep sea discovery comes from user Stormcutter. Sick name, a little bit better of a diver name. They say, I know a guy who was out diving for crayfish and lobster by the ocean. Also, the I know a guy trick, it was totally you. Don't lie to us. Crayfish often hide under the rocks, so as he was diving, a tiger shark emerged from a cave and rammed him, breaking his arm and ribs. This guy got shucked by a shark. That's insane. He said the shark was testing him out. Yeah, I'd say. That's pretty sweet, man. I'm glad you survived, honestly. I bet you couldn't wait to tell people what happened. You're like, oh, my ribs? Yeah, I got sideswiped by a tiger shark. Yeah, he's feeling testy. You know how tiger sharks do. If you're wondering what that experience may have looked like, this is footage of a rare tiger shark in New Zealand, lurking in the deep. Number 7, Humpback Mama. This deep dive happened about a year ago. A diver named Sidetrack38, that's their username, not their legal name, although that would be pretty sweet. Sidetrack38, he's like, what's up? They were exploring the ocean one afternoon when all of a sudden they got charged by a mother humpback whale. The divers shared their experience online, saying, her curious calf had swum around us and we were between her and the calf. 2 of us never even saw her coming. We were watching the baby, but our third diver saw her come. She kicked down and swam under us last minute. We didn't see anything until that 60-foot freight train passed just underneath us. Whales are beautiful. They're beautiful but terrifying creatures, my friend. Glad you didn't get a broken rib or back in this case, because whales, they like to go pretty deep.
Just view.
Just trying to figure us out.
Incredible.
Yeah, this is amazing.
Justin, you want the overheads off?
Look at that view. I hope we're getting screen captures of this.
Number 6, Mako shark. Mako sharks are one of the fastest sharks in the world. I'll start by saying that. Just get that fact in your head. Given this list so far, I would also start sweating if I were you. This is a scary one. This deep dive horror story comes from username One Dumb Diver. Great name. They clearly made this account just to share this occasion, so let's dive in. Nowadays, we dive with shark shields, which emit electronic pulses that freak the sharks out and keep them away. But back then, what we used was essentially a chainmail sleeve. The idea being that sharks hate the taste of metal, so if you give it your arm, it'll bite down, decide you're gross, and then move along. So I wait, it comes over, and I make a perfect move to give it my arm. However, just before the crunch, it occurred to me that I had left my sleeve on my bed. Now I had a huge open, gashing wound on my arm from the bite in open water, and I trailed blood everywhere. Not an ideal scenario. So once the shock finally wore off, you realize that you're in salt water, and salt and open wounds, they don't feel good. In a panic, I dropped my weight belt and shot up to the surface without any sort of waiting period. Not great. Because I hadn't been paying attention to the currents, I was approximately a quarter mile downstream of my boat, which meant that I had to swim back up to it. After getting bitten by a shark, imagine having to swim, that is a nightmare scenario. Glad you're okay. Also, you're not a dumb diver, you're experiencing the things, you're figuring it out. You're doing great, you're brave. I don't even like going in lakes. Number 5, more sea snakes. Coming from Patrick667 about a year ago as well, they posted, so 3 days ago I went snorkeling off Mimba Island in Zanzibar. Everything went normal and we started heading back, so I grabbed my net and I put my black fins, my black mask, snorkel, and black wetsuit inside. Once back ashore, I grab my bag, jump off the boat, and head to the rental office to return said equipment. At that point, I feel my bag is moving somehow. At first look, it seemed like a flat black worm squirming quickly. After rotating the bag, I realized I was looking at only the tail of a 1 meter long black sea snake, one of the most venomous reptiles ever, trying to get out of the net. like in the lobby. How it got there, I have no freaking clue. That is a nightmare scenario. Imagine being like, thanks so much, I had a great time. Here's a sand dollar. Also, don't mind the venomous snake. Number 4, the frilled shark. Back in 2004, marine biologists discovered this dinosaur, the frilled shark, just hanging out, just lurking about 870 meters below the surface. So if you're anywhere around there, watch out. This one looks like an eel almost. It's so scary looking, it's so slippery and quick. Frilled sharks can grow up to 7 feet long and they fight in the dark. They don't need to see to attack you, which is pretty terrifying considering all these deep dive stories are all in the pitch black. So unless you're a deep diver, you're not really gonna run into the frilled shark. Have you ever dealt with one of these? Are you a diver? Are you watching this because you're a diver? Please comment down below if you are. Comment some of your personal experiences. These were a nightmare to read. I couldn't even finish half of them. Everything is so dangerous and so fast underwater. Number 3, snapping shrimp. This little guy can literally create a sonic boom as it attacks you. That's how fast it is. You won't see him coming, and neither did this diver. Here's a clip of a mantis shrimp punching through a diver's gear. Yeah, right through their water shoes. Bam!
Ow, that really hurt.
They're so quick. Oh my god, they're tiny, but they really hit. They're often found in coral reefs, oyster reefs. These little guys, these pistol shrimp, they hit their prey at 100 kilometers per hour. And in doing so, a large air bubble is created, and because this, Mike Tyson shrimp is so quick with the left hook, the following pop is around 200 decibels. The sound alone can stun its prey, and if they're lucky, it sometimes kills them. That's how you want to go out. You don't want to go out with one of these Superman punches to the neck. Number 2, comb stars. Ocean life is by far the scariest thing out there. We have no idea what's in our oceans. We discover some crazy shit every year. Some deep sea fish with bioluminescence are for sure aliens, while others are just natural predators that look scary. Like the comb star, for example. This guy was not in Finding Nemo. He would have been a weird addition. A comb star is a starfish that contains tetrodotoxin, which is this deadly neurotoxin that can cause paralysis. Yeah, Finding Nemo, that movie would be over in 8 minutes if this guy was there. Per every gram of comb star flesh, there's enough toxin to take out 500 mice. So if you have a mice problem, honestly, you can call one guy. It's a very specific weird call, but I know how you can do it. A little bit of tetrodotoxin. Tetrodotoxin? Tetrodotoxin, that's what it's called. And finally coming in at number 1, the electric eel. Awesome, that's the worst thing I've ever seen. Great. The moray eel, first of all, don't do what he just did. Don't go up to a random eel and start rubbing it like it's a genie lamp. That's not smart. It's not a Great Dane. You don't want to do that. That was the moray eel. That one can bite your fingers off in like 2 seconds. But you should never touch an eel in the first place because a lot of them are electric. Yeah, just like that MGMT song that's now stuck in our heads. As its name suggests, there's types of eels that can mess you up even if you were to get the first hit. Specifically, the newly discovered 2.5 meter Electrophorus volti, appropriately named after Alessandro Volta, aka the guy who invented the battery. This eel can release a shock up to 860 volts, which is more than 7 times the voltage of a wall plug. A swimming wall plug that gets hungry. Nice. We love nature. I'm never swimming again.